How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about some coaching changes, some coaching hires, big coaching hire out in New Jersey. The New York Giants have named John Harbaugh their next head coach. Although things are not official yet, but it's going to happen. John Harbaugh is going to be the Giants' next head coach. And I know we talked about it briefly when I had Dami on. We talked about the playoff games from over the weekend. But I did want to dive into the topic more so on Mike Tomlin stepping down as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. And the Steelers are going to be looking for a new coach next season and the ramifications with that, particularly with Aaron Rodgers. But I did want to get into talking about Harbaugh being hired for the Giants first, because that's what happened last night. Late last night, reports were coming out that things were kind of moving in that direction. Harbaugh did leave the facility. I mean, the Giants were going to do everything they could to make sure that he didn't leave the facility because they really wanted him. They wanted him to be the guy. And when we were just at about midnight on the East Coast, it was confirmed. Adam Schefter tweeted it. Giants are going to name John Harbaugh their next head coach. And again, not official, but it's going to happen. And for the Giants and their fans, this is a home run hire. This is a home run hire. This is someone that the Giants have needed for years. This is the best head coach. Now, we got to see what happens on the field, but this is the best head coach that they've had since Tom Coughlin was let go back in 2015, after the 2015-2016 season. The Giants have gone through coordinators and failed head coaches, getting a second chance. This is what an organization like the Giants needed. Giants need stability. They need somebody, and another thing that's been thrown around is a program builder. That is what John Harbaugh is going to bring to the Giants. The Giants need a figure that's going to come in and discipline this team. Provide discipline, build a culture. This organization has needed that for so long, right? They've had a few years where, they make the playoffs, and then after that, they go back into the tank, right? 2016 and then 2022. I thought Brian Dable was going to be the guy after that first year, but then the last 2 years, it hasn't worked out. And then he comes back again in 2025, and they had two big wins after Jaxson Dart took over, but the team still did not do well, and they're going to be picking in the top 5 in the NFL draft. So, and again, not all the blame should be put on Dable, right? Shane Bowen with the defense, and how many fourth quarter blown leads did they have? It's more than just on Dable, but it's just there needed to be a change. Now, it seems like Joe Shane is still going to be sticking around, so we'll see what happens there. But Harbaugh, we'll see how that relationship unfolds between Joe Shane and John Harbaugh. But this was a great hire. This is a great hire. I mean, once he became available, you knew that he was going to be the top choice. Now, like, I had my choices. There was Harbaugh. If Tomlin became available, he was going to be another choice. Again, we'll talk about Tomlin more so in this episode. But also, I thought Mike McCarthy. I think those, to me, would have been the top 3. I know Kevin Stefanski is a top choice for a lot of people out there, but Stefanski, I guess, would have been like my 4th choice. And if Matt LaFleur ends up being let go by the Packers, which doesn't seem like that's going to happen, it seems like he's going to be brought back and they're going to extend him, then he would be another choice. But those were my top 3, and the Giants land John Harbaugh. And I know that there are Ravens fans on social media saying, yeah, good luck with that. And, other fans of different fan bases are talking about the Giants being a team that blows fourth quarter leads. He's a head coach that, under his watch, his teams have blown some fourth quarter leads. We've seen that this past season. But to me, the Giants, it doesn't matter, because the Giants need someone that has won in this league, that's a proven head coach, that could turn this franchise around. And he was the best option when he was made available. And it's amazing how John Harbaugh was let go last week after the last week of the regular season, and then Mike Tomlin steps down. It's just amazing. We are really seeing a seismic change across the league now. I mean, those two guys were like the longest tenured coaches, and now they're going to be either coaching elsewhere or just not going to be coaching at all next year. And Harbaugh is going to be with the Giants next year. And I look at the NFC East, and you want to be cautiously optimistic, right? But you look across the NFC East. I mean, John Harbaugh is the best coach right now in this division. Okay, now Sirianni's been to 2 Super Bowls. He won 1, so you got to give him the respect that he deserves. Even though Eagles fans want to run him out of town now with the latest elimination from the playoffs. Yes, yes, my dog agrees with that. But Harbaugh has the best resume, right? So, and you got Dan Quinn, you got Schottenheimer, but Harbaugh, he's the number one guy. And the Giants, he's stepping into a good situation, right? You got the quarterback, all right? You got good players on defense. You got Malik Nabers coming back next year. You got Cam Skattebo coming back next year, right? There's a foundation there. But now they need a leader, and that's John Harbaugh. Now, there's definitely some improvements that need to be made to this roster. They have to improve the secondary. Obviously, the offensive line played well this past season. They need to continue to work on that, particularly, I guess, the right side of the offensive line. Maybe. Linebacker is another position that they need. You're going to need another weapon opposite of Nabers, because I don't know if they're going to bring back Wan'Dale Robinson, and Darius Slayton, I think, should be cut. No offense to him, but that just didn't work out. Hasn't really worked out. It was kind of a surprise to us all that the Giants brought him back. But there are pieces in place. And then you look at some of the other teams that could have been a possible destination for him. Like the Falcons were another team that they'd be competing with. And the Falcons have good pieces on their roster, with some of the defensive players and obviously offense. Well, the offensive pieces are really the most attractive part of the team. Drake London and obviously Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And we'll see what happens with Kyle Pitts if they bring him back. It's really the quarterback position that's an issue, because Kirk Cousins, I feel like he's going to end up somewhere else next year. And then Michael Penix Jr., there's an injury history. So are the Falcons going to have to come up with a different plan there? It's amazing with that, because you drafted Michael Penix Jr., and before that you gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed on a 4-year contract, coming off of an Achilles injury, and both of those guys might not even be the answer. They might have to look for an entirely new answer. Now, Matt Ryan steps in, I think, right, is the president of football operations. I think that's his position, and I think that's great that he's back with the organization. But yeah, the Falcons, they're not that far away. They just got to figure out the quarterback situation. So yeah, that was an attractive spot. I know Miami was thrown out there. I mean, they're going to have a different quarterback next year. I mean, I don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to be the long-term answer, and Tua's certainly done there now after being benched. And you didn't know what was going to happen with Matt LaFleur. If Matt LaFleur was going to get let go after the playoff collapse against the Bears, but he's going to stay there. But to me, the Giants, they were the most attractive spot for Harbaugh, and he's going to bring in his own staff. They're already working on that. And yeah, with this division, back to what I was originally saying, I think Harbaugh is the best coach out of what they have, and I also just think that this division is not going to be as much of a juggernaut as you thought it was last year. Because yeah, the Cowboys, they have a very good offense, but they still got to work on that defense. That defense was not good, so they're going to have to fix that. Washington, they made it to the NFC Championship game last year, but this year, Jane Daniels was hurt. The defense was not very good. They got some question marks going into next year. And the Eagles got some question marks going into next year. I think the Eagles are still going to be a good team, but I don't know. Is A.J. Brown going to be a part of this team next year? Or is he going to get traded? That's something that we're going to see unfold this offseason, because I think he's probably done. He might be done with the Eagles. And we saw how Jalen Hurts was when Nick Sirianni was there the first year with no A.J. Brown. Like, yeah, he had a good year, but when A.J. Brown got there, that's when they really took off. I mean, you're still going to have Saquon Barkley, you still got Devontae Smith, you still got Dallas Goedert, and you're still backed by a pretty good defense. So the Eagles are still going to be a good team, but what we were thinking after they won last year's Super Bowl, you're thinking this is going to be the next dynasty. Might not be that. Might not be that. So it might be there for the taking for the Giants. But you could also say, all right, you need to slow down. I do need to slow down. Because for me, as someone that grew up rooting for the Giants and being a Giant fan, the key for the Giants, for me to fully buy back in, and I've already told this to some of my friends, you have to be able to sustain it. And I think with John Harbaugh, they can do that. It's definitely there because you have the quarterback, you have pieces on defense, you got a wide receiver one, you got a running back one. The offensive line is heading in the right direction. There are things to like about this team. And now that you have somebody that's going to come in and build a culture here and be a leader of men, I am optimistic, but you have to be able to sustain it. You can't just make the playoffs the first year and then that's it. I'm back in. You got to be able to sustain it. This team needs to be competitive every year. Enough of these years where they're winning 3 or 4 games or 2 games. All right? There's been too many of those because in the beginning of in the 2010s, start of the 2010s, I mean, yeah, they weren't good teams, but at least like you're winning 6 or 7 games. I know what I just said for the people, those 2 numbers, but you know they weren't like finishing bottom of the league. Now all of a sudden they're finishing bottom of the league. I mean, 2017 was awful. Last year was awful. This year was awful, despite knocking off 2 playoff teams in 2 of the 4 victories that you had. So the Giants have to be able to sustain it. And obviously there's a lot of things going on behind closed doors with John Mara, and we're wishing him nothing but the best in his recovery, and hopefully he could get through this, his battle with cancer. It's tough. It's tough. But the Giants really went the extra mile to get John Harbaugh in here. And he's here. And I'm very happy that that's the case. This was a great hire for the Giants. And now it's all about having a good draft, having a good free agency, and we'll see what happens when they take the field next year, how it's going to look. But there's a lot of signs pointing to the Giants being one of those teams. Like you look at what kind of transformation the Bears went through this year, compared to last year, right? You get Caleb Williams last year, but you didn't have the right head coach. Now you bring in Ben Johnson, and all of a sudden this team is 1 game away from an NFC Championship game and 2 games away from a Super Bowl appearance because of that relationship. Now you bring in Harbaugh and a full year of Jaxson Dart, full year Nabers, a full year of Skattebo, and hopefully the defense, you bring in the right coordinator and maximize the potential of this defense. Sky's the limit for what this team can do. Giants have talent on this team. They do. You might not believe it, but they do. They lost several games this year that they could have won if it wasn't for late game blown leads. But now, next year, things could be on the come up for this team. I think I think with Harbaugh in here, and you put together a good draft, you put together a good free agency, you got the quarterback, they're going to be a tough team next year. They can be that team that makes that jump. But at the same time, you look at the recent track record for the Giants, and you say, they got to go out there and prove it. They got to go out there and prove it. Got to see it to believe it. So, again, this was a great hire by the Giants. This could definitely put the franchise back in the right direction. Get them out of this rut that they've been in for so long. And be looked at as a respectable franchise again. Because the Giants have been one of those teams that's been a laughingstock for years. Because of the hires and the certain things that coaches have done over the years. I mean, the Eli benching, the QB sneaks inside the 5-yard line. there's just been a lot of antics, a lot of noise that the franchise wants to be respected again. This is how you do that, by bringing in this coach. That's a proven head coach. That is what I have wanted for this team. That is what many Giant fans have wanted for this team. They can't enough with the first-time coordinators. And not to say that you shouldn't give a chance to a first-time head coach that's been a coordinator. Look at what Kellen Moore is doing, right? Look at what Matt LaFleur did with the Packers and the 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, winning back-to-back MVPs. Obviously, you got to give these guys a chance. But for the Giants, a team that's been going through that same cycle over and over again, and it's proven to be unsuccessful, you got to go a different route. And this was the right route. And it comes at a time where there's a lot of candidates out there that you could pick. But they got arguably the best one available in John Harbaugh. So let me know what you guys think, though, about the Harbaugh hiring for the Giants. What do you think about it? It's a great hire.